Hello and welcome to another edition of Volusia County Issues. My name is Crazy Eddie Colosimo. My guests this morning are Larry Fornari. Larry, nice to meet you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And Tom Blawn.
Tom Blawn.
Tom, how do you do? And Tom, we'll get into it.
Good to be with you again.
Good to see you again. You know, in the past, the show is called Volusia County Issues. The story we're going to talk about today is going to be the HA Board. I like to refer to it now, since this last fiasco, as the Ha-Ha Board, because I think it's a joke the way things are going there. I'd like to start with you, Larry.
Sure.
Would you, well, both of you gentlemen, would you please explain to the audience what is the HA Board and what does it mean to the citizens of Volusia County financially and otherwise?
Well, years ago, the hotel industry approached the legislature and basically went to them and said, we would like to implement a tax on our guests that in turn could be collected by our county, and then turned around and used for our county and our industry to basically promote ourselves and bring additional people to our community. That effort was led by a number of people here locally. Quite honestly, Tom Stead was probably the biggest person that pushed that issue back in the day and was able to get it passed. It's highly unusual for an industry to go to the legislature and ask them to be taxed, because basically what it does is it increases our overall price to the customer. But in turn, it gives us a pool of funds down the road to be able to turn around and market our destination to bring additional people here. So it's been a very beneficial thing, not only for our industry, but the community as a whole, because it not only helps the hotels, it helps the other retail businesses, the restaurants, the gift shops, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of how it started. And then the Ocean Center came in, and that is an additional pool of money that came about through the same type of tax. Mm-hmm. And it is important to understand that the residents of Volusia County do not pay that tax unless they actually stay in one of our local hotels. Right. So it's our out-of-area consumer that's coming in that's actually paying that tax and paying for the advertising and promotion of the leisure market, as well as the original construction of the Ocean Center and the recent expansion.
Now, what was your role on the Ha-Ha Board?
Well, actually, I mean, quite honestly, I was very fortunate to be asked to serve on that board, and I felt like it was a very important position for anyone involved in the industry to be involved in. I was on the board for a few years, and then was fortunate that the other individuals on the board saw fit that I should be the chairman of the board. So I was chairman for a number of years leading up to this past March, when the entire board rolled over, which was, again, something that was highly unusual, because we never had a complete board rollover or turnover at one time. It was always staggered appointments so that you had continuity on the board from one year to the next.
Tom, what was your position on the board? I know you were also on the board.
Yeah, I was. I put my application in to be appointed to the board a little over 2.5 years ago, and out of District 4, which was called Persis' county district, and appointments come from the county council. That's how somebody gets to be on that board, and everybody has a different level. For example, Pat Northey has no appointment. She doesn't represent in her district any part of the Halifax advertising area. Carl has District 4, and I live in District 4, and I petitioned him actually to get appointed to it. And then there's others that have different levels of voting, and that's in their bylaws. The county chair gets so many appointments. The at-large, in this case Joyce Cusick, gets 3 appointments. Right. So each member of the county council has different appointment levels, and I was appointed by Carl, and I was there 2 years and did not get reappointed in this latest shift at the HA Board.
There's been a lot of news on this issue. Let's go back recently there were several appointments and non-reappointments made. The board has shifted in its numbers. It's a fractured board, as I understand it at this point. Is that correct?
Well, it actually hasn't shifted in its numbers. There's still the same
Numbers
of appointees on the board, but there's definitely been a change in the makeup of the board. The board, by statute, is the Florida statutes require that out of the 11-member board, 6 members of the board be hoteliers, and the remaining 5 members must be in the tourism industry, because it is a tourism-related board.
Okay, that point we'll cover in a little bit. So you've got 11 members. Each must be at least in the tourism industry. All right. Yet we have someone right now, the new chair, who is not in that industry, don't we?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, Joyce Cusack, when she came up to her appointments, had 3 appointments, and the 3 appointments that she made was Ted Duran, an attorney, who, in his own admission, does not know anything about tourism, and his appointment has been contested, but Joyce has stuck with her choice, and then she appointed 2 young people, Sophia Uger and Catherine Robinson, and I'm correct in that, aren't I, Larry?
I don't think she appointed both of them. One of those appointments was Commissioner Wagner.
Yeah, Commissioner Wagner, or
Commissioner-
Councilman Matt Wagner, yeah.
Commissioner Wagner. But they were 3 of the new appointments to the board, and the 2 young people that were appointed, you know, are one of them is 21 years old.
Yeah.
Now, which it's just really surprised the industry as a whole, because an appointment to the HOB board is almost a coveted appointment, because, and you want experienced people there, because you're actually deciding on where quite a big pool of money is going to be spent, and that money is spent to augment and help the industry fill up, you know, our hotels and the rest of the hospitality industry, restaurants and gift shops and so on and so forth. And as you know, Eddie, 30 to 40,000 of our 160,000 workforce in the county works in the hospitality industry. So this is a huge and very important board with an incredibly important task, which is to fill up these rooms so we keep people employed.
Okay, I appoint somebody. I'm a councilman. I appoint somebody. Is that it, or does the council itself have to vote on my appointment?
No, it's appointment is made by an individual council member, and then the appointment goes to a vote for the entire council to either approve or disapprove.
So then what I'm seeing here is, because of some of the people that I see that are on this board now, I'm seeing the overwhelming majority of our county council is, in my opinion, in collusion to change the face of this board.
I think that that's probably correct, and I think a lot of the issue stems from you know, county staff. I think there's been some leveraging from staff to redirect the positioning of the board as far as how the funding is spent. As you know, we had the Ocean Center expansion. I think there's a move to try to use some additional funds for Ocean Center funding out of the HOB budget. And that's a directive that staff has given. You know, and look, the fact of the matter is this, is as long as we have 12 experienced or 11 experienced people on that board, I personally, as a businessman in the area, I don't care if they're 20, 25, 30, or 50 years old. There's good ideas that come from everyone. However, you have to have a basis for that experience. You have to have spent some time in the industry to understand how it works and how destination marketing is different than product marketing. And it's a different animal. So my concern is that doing what's best for the area, not particularly what's best for the individual or the business that is represented by the individual on that board.
Garrett, Larry, how can a 21-year-old have sufficient life experience and knowledge in this kind of an industry as big as it is? I have a problem with that.
Well, it goes even deeper than the fact that she is inexperienced and extremely young, but she also works for one of the people on the county council that's invested in a magazine. Josh Wagner, who represents District 2, is an investor in a magazine called Floridian View. The editor of that magazine is Manny Borneo, whose name people should recognize.
That's the name I was looking for before when we were talking.
Whose name people should recognize because he is the young gentleman, he's pretty young himself, he's under 30, who was put in charge of the great American Music Festival that flopped and lost $1.8 million and probably cost us, in effect, at the end of the day, after the investigation, a really good college president, because it happened on his watch. And so even though he wasn't watching, in all likelihood, what happened with that $1.8 million that Manny controlled, when they investigated, it became a controversy that actually took Ken Sharples down, who was the president of DSC, who did great things with DSC over, I think he was there for 10 years. And so this young lady, Catherine Robinson, works for Manny Borneo, who runs this magazine that Josh Wagner, county council person, is invested in. And incidentally, I would like to mention also that in their last issue, they had an article, and the cover of it was featuring Ted Duran, the chairman, the present chairman of our HaHa board. Now, I don't know about you, but connecting the dots, it sounds sounds awful fishy. And I just want to say one more thing, Eddie.
Go ahead, please.
About that. You know, they had to get 6 people that were going to vote the way they wanted them to vote. And it was about the money, and I agree with Larry 100% about it. It was about the money.
So that was the first step.
They have a shortfall at the Ocean Center, $1.2 million, and they've had it for 2 years because of shrinkage in the bed tax. Bed tax used to be $7 million before the recession. It's now $5.2 million. Well, their budget for the Ocean Center was projected upon $7 million, and that would have covered the debt to fund the new construction. Well, when we had the recession, they have a shortfall. They're grabbing money for that shortfall elsewhere. The county manager and the county chair are grabbing that money elsewhere, and they don't like where they're grabbing it from, so they want to try to grab it from the HaHa board. That's what we all believe is going to happen. Now, in order to get that this to take place, they had to put a lot of pieces in place. Josh Wagner and Ted Duran and Manny Borneo and whoever else was involved in this, Jim Deneen or Frank Bruno or whoever else, or maybe even higher up people than that. I don't know. We don't have proof about that, but we do know who was involved in voting for those 6 people that vote as a block. These are the 6 people that put Ted Duran as in chairman, and then watch what Ted has been doing with the HaHa board, and Larry can talk more about that. But at the end of the day, they helped Joyce Cusack get elected. And one has to be very suspicious